Hey everybody, this is Jamar Dawson from the 1854 movement. I hope you're doing great today. What I wanted to talk about was the proposed gun legislation that Biden's put on his website of long laundry list of items that he wants to either restrict or regulate or outright ban. There's some things on there that I feel like was just for appeasement. There's also some things on there that I feel like could have some teeth when he moves into office and tries to negotiate with Congress to try to get certain things through. So I want to go ahead and talk about those things today, and hopefully you can position yourself for the future and govern yourselves accordingly and get right what you need to get right and procure what you need to procure before all this stuff rolls down the pipeline. Let's get started. Before we go over this, I would be remiss if I didn't briefly summarize the federal assault weapons ban of 1994 and define what an assault weapon is according to the language of that legislation, as Biden's proposal is really just a glorified version of that old law. Don't forget, Biden signed that ban into law, and his new gun control proposal has many similarities to it. The AWB was a prohibition-style 10-year ban that limited procurement of semi-automatic rifles and magazines that held more than 10 rounds in 1994. This narrowly passed 52-48 after pressure from previous presidents, including, surprise, surprise, Ronald Reagan. The ban, written by people who really didn't know anything about firearms, seemed to focus on the scary and military-looking features rather than how lethal a weapon actually was. For example, guns having a pistol grip were just too scary and thus needed to be banned. It was argued that only about 1% of violent crimes involve the usage of semi-automatic rifles, and that banning these guns won't have a massive effect on violent crime rates. And several reviews, well after the sunset of the ban, proved that this actually was a true postulation. Regardless, it appears that the Biden administration is focused on pushing the narrative that banning semi-autos and the arbitrarily chosen 10-round magazine limit will have a drastic effect on lives lost to gun violence. Okay, let's talk about what may happen and what may actually get passed. So the first and one of the more bigger things on here is the ban of semi-automatic rifles and high-cap magazines. I believe it's only going to be certain types of semi-automatic rifles mirroring the assault weapons ban, but this is going to be one of the things I believe they are going to go after and probably have a high likelihood of success in pushing this all the way through. Not only did Biden vote for the assault weapons ban in '94, Democrats currently control the House, the Senate with the VP, the tie-breaking vote, of course, we already talked about earlier. They have the White House, obviously. Will it reduce mass shootings? Maybe, but the majority of shootings aren't classified as mass shootings. They're just crime with pistols or shotguns. Not to mention, criminals don't typically use semi-automatic rifles, so you're not going to see a major decrease in violence with firearms involved, as we didn't see a major decrease from 1994 to 2004. What they're going to do most likely is incorporate a broader ban as they explore that option to cover pistols and shotguns later down the line, as some legislators have already talked about, but that's a topic for another video. But I do believe that a ban on certain types of semi-automatic rifles and high-cap magazines has a high likelihood of something being targeted and getting pushed through. The next thing that I think may happen is the regulation of possession of existing semi-automatic rifles under the NFA. Well, Biden incorrectly infers that silencers and machine guns are registered post-ownership, and that's the reason why they aren't used in crimes. I could see a huge push to get a national registry on existing semi-automatic rifles. Registration wasn't something that happened during the assault weapons ban, and although there will be massive non-compliance, I could see this at least being passed by Congress. The next thing is the end of online sales of guns and ammo. I'm a little worried about this one. Competition in the marketplace helps to keep prices low, and cutting off supply from online retailers will cause a price spike and probably a massive demand. If passed, it would be fairly easy to incorporate from the government. All they have to do is just shut down online gun and ammo suppliers fairly easily, I believe. This is really sad, but I think this is going to be something they're going to go after. Now let's talk about what is not likely to pass in Congress, something that is not going to be effective, something they're not going to have enough information to put an effective bill together on. First, create an effective program to ensure individuals who become prohibited from possessing firearms relinquish their weapons. I have no idea how they can create an effective program. There is already programs in place that really force felons of violent crimes of certain natures to
never own guns again. There's some where they have to, turn them in if they're known to have them. But beyond that, I don't see how this could be effective. I do think that this could potentially be dangerous because, who gets to say who is prohibited? This could be anybody, especially someone with differing political ideologies. Coincidentally, the majority of gun owners fall into this bracket. The sad thing is that 95% of gun violence is done by those who have committed crimes already. The number actually is thought to be much higher than that. Since these individuals don't buy guns through trackable means, what is Biden going to do? Kick down every door, searching house to house to see if guns are present? No way. And think about how much of a PR nightmare that's going to be. Much worse than the stop and frisk policy by the beloved ex-mayor of New York. As a result, I think logic will maybe win out. I know that's dangerous to assume, but I do think that this is not going to pass because there's nothing really to be put together here other than what's already in place. The next thing that is not likely to pass, and this is probably the silliest thing on his website, put America on the path to ensuring that 100% of firearms sold in America are smart guns. This is a pretty dumb idea because there's no objective timeline. It doesn't have any concise details about what this even looks like. I don't know what kind of sci-fi the Biden team is looking into, but smart guns in the very near future, that certainly isn't happening. Okay, I added a bonus section in here for things that may be likely but will have very little effect on gun owners. Get weapons of war off our streets. Not only does this sound silly, as the majority of infantry-style weapons utilized by the military are true assault rifles with select fire capability, they cost a fortune and require an NFA registration and tax stamp for private citizens to procure. As a result, virtually zero weapons of war are used in crimes. This objective is simply clickbait, as it sounds good during election campaigns and speeches, but for the reasons I listed above, really doesn't mean anything. Keep guns out of dangerous hands by requiring a background check. Two things here. Democrats always talk about the mythical gun show loophole. None exists. Every transaction at a gun show is conducted via an FFL, and a background check is performed every single time. Next, private sales of firearms are nearly impossible to track. I can go to one of the homies right now, get a throwaway for $125 and be on my way. This is simply just lip service and more clickbait. Buyback of semi-automatic rifles. This has been done on the West Coast for a number of years. People may turn in their low quality or poorly operating guns to get a quick buck, but it won't have an effect on non-compliant gun owners at all. I mean, do you really think violent criminals will turn in their ARs and AKs? Seriously. Reduce stockpiling by limiting purchases to one a month. This is kind of strange why this is even incorporated. Most people only buy one or two a year, if that. Just another clickbait objective in my opinion. In closing, the proposed bans by Biden appear pretty extreme at first glance, but the good news for responsible gun owners is that it's likely that there's only a few items that are really going to get pushed through Congress. Keep in mind, Bill Clinton had a trifecta with the Democrat-controlled House, Senate, and White House, and just barely got the ban pushed through in 1994. In modern-day America, where there's more Democrat gun owners than ever before, I expect there to be some hesitancy before a Democrat from a gun-friendly state votes on the ban in fear of not being re-elected. For this reason alone, an actual prohibition will probably have a lot of compromise thrown into the mix than what we currently see on the Biden website. Also, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on the Biden list that's already in effect, like some gun show loopholes. Those are already closed. So it's possible that he declares that, hey, we made some progress and forgoes some of the legal battles predicted by the tougher components in this ban.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. We're going to be putting more content out in the near future, especially as we learn a little bit more about what all of these proposed legislation really means as we get closer to him assuming office and maybe trying to push these things down the pipeline. God bless. Stay safe. We'll talk soon. Peace.